I'm Neil Heffernan. I'm a professor at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. And there's a big IES grant that you're going to hear a little bit about today from Erin Higgins. But Christina and I actually were married, and we love using our platform to run studies, and we want other people to see that and to go get funding for it. Actually, Christina, and then Lee, and then Erin.
Sure. I'm Christina Heffernan. My part of this whole project has really been to allow assessments to really get used in the classroom. Sort of Neil brought me on to help with content and ideas. We definitely have bounced ideas on what assessments became. And none of these research projects work unless there's someone using the system. So you can recruit your own teachers, and it's easy for them to use it and get going. But we also have a large quantity of teachers using assessments and are working hard to have even more. So that's my role, and I'm also excited about being able to run these studies.
Hi, my name is Li Chen. I'm the research scientist working on eTrials, and I help researchers with their studies along the way, from the very beginning to the very end. So everything, yeah. Hannah Pandolf is our product manager. She's not here today, but she helps with anything related to the platform.
And how about Erin?
Hey, I'm Erin Higgins. I'm at the Institute of Education Sciences, or IES. We're the federal research arm of the Department of Education. And I'm here today because Assessments / eTrials is part of our SeerNet network, which is a network of grants that are seeking to figure out the ways that we can leverage digital learning platforms that are being used at scale for research purposes. So today, I'll talk a little bit more along with Neil and Lee and Christina about an opportunity for research teams to join that network, to use one of the platforms, of which this is one, to implement research studies and do interesting work. And that competition is open with a due date of February 23rd, 2023. But the good news is if you're just learning about it and you feel like it's too soon, we have lots of grant opportunities available. And there are ways to partner with assessments to do research and those other grant opportunities too. So I'm happy to talk about those today, if that's useful.
Killer, actually. And Lee, why don't you pull up the PowerPoints and officially get us started?
Slideshow. Can you see my slides okay?
We can.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to our webinar. So glad you're here. My name is Li Chen. I'm the research scientist working on eTrials. Today, we're going to talk about the IES Grant Competition and how eTrials can support you. So here's the agenda for today. First, Dr. Erin Higgins will talk about the IES Grant Competition. Then we will delve into more details about eTrials and how eTrials can support you. In the end, we will have a Q&A session. So let's move on to IES Grant Competition. Dr. Erin Higgins, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so like I said, the Institute of Education Sciences runs external facing grant competitions. So we invite researchers from all over who have the capacity to conduct research. So anyone could apply, from a nonprofit to a for-profit business to an institute of higher education, to come in and submit an application to conduct research. We have open competitions throughout the year for various things. We try to also run a field initiated competition every year. We're taking a break from that one this year. It's called the Education Research Grants Competition, but we're likely to recompete it in 2023. So take a look out for that. And in the meantime, I'm here today to talk about our digital learning platforms network competition, where, again, as I said before, we're going to fold research teams into our SeerNet network. Those research teams are going to be asked to propose research ideas that could be implemented on one of the 5 digital learning platforms that are part of CERNet. So Assessments is one. We also have Terracotta, which is a plugin for Canvas. We have Arizona State University Learning at Scale platform. We have Kinetic, which is an experiment platform run through OpenStax. We also have I'm forgetting what, Mathia, sorry, and Upgrade, which are run through Carnegie Learning. So applicants submit an idea for implementing a study on one of those 5 platforms. Some key dates for you. By January 6th, applicants need to request a feasibility letter from the platform, which is a letter that indicates whether or not your idea is likely to be able to be implemented on that platform. You know, there's some things that are just going to be out of scope, and this is a process by which we can try to figure out whether or not the research logistics that you've put out there are likely to work with that platform. And then by February 23rd, you need to have submitted your application to IES through the grants.gov system. There's a lot more information on our website. So Lee put the request for applications link on this page. Another important document to be aware of is the IES submission guide. That guide walks you through exactly how to submit a grant application to IES on time. The duration of the grant can be up to 2 years, and the maximum budget you can ask for is up to $400,000. Here's a little bit more information about these feasibility letters I'm talking about. Specifically for assessments and e-trials, you need to submit requests to the email address shown here. If you're interested in one of the other platforms, you can go to the CERNet.org/platforms page to find out more about what the other platforms do and how to contact them. In order to get the feasibility letter, there is a list of details that you need to provide in your email request, which includes an overview of the project, the list of research questions you're seeking to address, the sample size and characteristics required for your study, the research design, and any brief description of measures or content or the kinds of things that you need to have access to or that you intend to develop to implement your study. I think you can go to the next slide. Right. And finally, if you're unfamiliar with IES, we have lots of information on our website about how the process works. So basically you submit your application by the due date, and then we follow a peer review process, which is outlined in the link shown on the screen. That process is, in short, is basically that external reviewers, and by external, I mean people who are not employees at IES, but are rather part of the field, are recruited to be part of a panel and they will review your applications. So a group of reviewers will do an initial review, and then those applications that are deemed to be most competitive will go to a second phase of the review where the entire panel of reviewers meets and discusses all the applications. From there, each application is given a scientific merit score, and then we make our funding decisions based on that process and the scores that result from it. Applicants would likely hear back for this competition in late summer of 2023, and the start date for this would be September 1st, 2023. Applicants do need to build in a 6-month planning period at the start of the grant so that if there are feasibility issues with the project you've proposed, there's time to work those out directly with the platform team. And you know, that just gives you a little bit of breathing room to make any tweaks and changes that are necessary in order to make this work.
Thank you, Dr. Higgins, for the information about IES Grant Competition. Next, we will talk about e-trials.
Hey, Lee, before we go there, those of you that don't know the difference between IES and NSF, I just want to point out how different it is. And like, if you go write a proposal, actually, you can get feedback from Erin. Like, Erin wants to see good proposals. And unlike NSF, she'll actually like look at your proposal and actually give you some feedback. And so you should take advantage of this opportunity. It's really weird at IES because Erin has to sit on her hands at the meeting while the reviewers come in, and it's nothing but the reviewers say. So you can trust her actually, because like she only wants to see good proposals actually show up. So take advantage of that. Actually, I didn't understand
Yeah.
when I was a young faculty member.
Thanks for that plug, Neil. And yeah, Neil's absolutely right. I'm happy to have one-on-one calls with applicants during this time, and also happy to look at materials that you're preparing for submission. So if that's something you want to take advantage of, you can just send me an email, and it's just my name. So erin.higgins@ed.gov, and I'll drop that in the chat too.
Thank
Good.
you. This is very helpful information. Okay, let's move on to what eTrials is. So eTrials is a joint project between the Worcester Polytechnic Institute and the Assessments Foundation. And our team has introduced ourselves, so I'll just move on to the next slide. If you haven't done so, please introduce yourself in the chat, your name, your title, institution, and if you have published a study, could you post a link in the chat? And
and I will just say on the fact that I know even one person is already here actually who's done a study, and I try to keep track of them, because I like to tell people like Erin Higgins I'm actually not wasting the federal dollars money, and real studies are getting done, and so help me brag actually, so I can continue this crazy agenda of actually helping platforms do science.
Great. So as we talk through the slides, please also make use of the chat to post any questions. So why eTrials? Educational research is a slow and a costly process. As many of you probably have experienced, it takes a lot of time to just get the participants, and it's very challenging to get a big sample size. So the goals of eTrials are to accelerate research studies and promote rigorous large-scale educational experiments. eTrials is grant supported. NSF and the Schmidt Futures have funded us to support researchers to conduct studies with our platform and also get public data sets. So far, we have a dozen researchers have conducted studies with us, and over 100 researchers have used our data sets and written papers. Currently, we're recruiting researchers to conduct studies with our NSF funding. So we provide $200 to set up a study and another $800 to complete a study. So hope this little funding can help you get started with your project, and maybe you can consider doing a pilot study for your IES grant application. More recently, IES funded us to add more research capabilities with the platform, where we're developing a better dependent measure infrastructure by creating similar but not the same problems to use as dependent measures. We're also working on the best so far student support condition. So we constantly improve the support we provide to students. We're also working on improving our data reporting. And right now, as Dr. Erin Higgins introduced, IES is providing funding opportunities for you to get your own funding to do studies with the platform, including eTrials. Before we dive into more details about the eTrials platform, there is something to pay attention. The current IES Grant Competition 305N grant line requires you to use our existing features in the platform, and we will not be part of your budget. So if your study requires us to add new features to the platform, we can join you on another IES grant line, which is called 305A. And we have helped 5 different PIs in the past with their IES, NSF, and NIH grants, where assessments is part of the budget.
Can I just actually back up one slide actually and just put my own take on this? So I remember a few years ago, I actually advocated with Mark Schneider, head of IES, that actually because he was sick of seeing so many actually grants get funded that actually seem small and they didn't actually have much scale and they didn't have much impact. And I was like, well, let's try a new idea. Let's fund platforms that actually would help external researchers like you guys. And so IES is taking that idea seriously. They've funded 5 platforms. I've gotten $2 million to actually try to help researchers like you folks that are here at the call. And I want you to succeed. I also want something out of it too, meaning actually I want good content. So we've been funded to build this infrastructure that will also actually compare whatever you're doing to our best so far. So we as the platform also kind of get something out of it, like and you get a free scaling thing. You'll be able to put into your grants that actually it just goes to scale right away. So anyways, I just thought it might be useful for you to understand the context of like an individual like myself and how we're motivated to try to do this. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you. So next we will talk about how eTrials can support you. We have developed the eTrials platform. It is a free platform for randomized controlled trials, and it integrates Assessments. Assessments is a free online K-12 math learning platform. It assists students and at the same time provides assessment data to teachers to inform them how they can provide better instruction for students. And Assessments uses popular OER curriculums, including illustrative mathematics and Engage New York. So how it works, studies will be developed with the eTrials platform, and then they will be delivered to students through Assessments. Here are some advantages of using the eTrials platform. First, it is free, and it integrates with Assessments, which is also free and uses popular OER math curriculums. Those curriculums are used by many schools, and Assessments integrates with Google Classroom, Canvas, Coursera, and edX. So you have a lot of options to implement your study. And Assessments connects with very large numbers of teachers and students. Our platform can be used for studies with both K-12 and higher ed students. There's no recruitment required if you use the problems from the OER curriculums in our library. And we provide very comprehensive data, including student learning data and students' prior learning and the clickstream data. Our platform integrates with OSF to auto pre-register studies for researchers. So you don't have to go to OSF and pre-register your study. And we provide very good researcher support to help you to develop studies and retrieve data from our platform. Here's a video clip of how a teacher would use Assessments to show, to assign problems to students. I will post the link in the chat, and you will have access to this video clip, and you can watch it later. What I want to show you
This is a short video.
Is these 2 video clips on how students use the support. Basically, what you will be building in the platform. So in this video clip, you will see how a student uses the hint by clicking show hint 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and show hint 3 of 3. That's how students get the hints when they work on a math problem. And in this video clip, the student uses show explanation to get an explanation for the problem. So you can imagine what you will be building to help students solve those problems.
Can I say something here? So I think it's really useful to know that actually the problem that is at the top of those both of those little videos is what was in Illustrative or Engage New York. That's what teachers are assigning across the United States. They love that stuff. Our teachers actually know we will check to see if what you put into the yellow boxes, basically you get to experiment by putting into the 2 yellow frames your version of hints or explanations. And anything that you can put in terms of text, video, GIFs actually are free game. You presumably are going to actually vary you're presumably going to submit 2 versions that vary by a single feature because you're an experimentalist. Well, by the way, it's possible to do secondary data analysis, and someone in the chat actually already said, hey, that's what I want to do. But if you want to do an experiment, you get to put whatever you want in these yellow boxes that are either hints or explanations. Good. Anyways, keep going, Lee.
Yeah, thank you. So how eTrials can support you? There are many ways we can support you. First, you can do studies using our platform. If you want to use our content library and work with our subject pool, you can do a support comparison study or a skill builder study. If you want to use your own content, and then you have to recruit your own subject pool, and you can do a problem varied study. Or you can do a secondary data analysis with our open data. And next, we will talk more details about these studies. So support comparison study is about comparing different types of student support. As you see in the video clip, there are hints or explanation that you can create for the math problems. And the conditions that will be in your study, so you will create your own student support conditions, and we always have our best so far student support as one of the conditions. So we can constantly improve our support for students. If your support is more effective, then your support will become our best so far. Here are some examples of student support comparison. I will briefly show you how they look like. So in this example, it's about comparing text versus video feedback. So on the top is the problem body, and on the left side is the text feedback, on the right side is the video feedback. So it's a comparison between the text and the video feedback. And in this example, it's about comparing different types of motivational videos. So the conditions are no video or motivational video with drugs, growth mindset, and or a motivational video with background's value of task. So you can see what conditions you want to use for your study. And in this example, on the left side is the step-by-step support. You can break down the support you provide to students. Or on the right side, it's a full worked example as a whole. These are just some examples for you. You can think about what supports, what conditions you want to have for your studies based on your research interest. And for a support comparison study, you don't need to recruit your participants because you will need to use the original math problems from the OER curriculums in our library. And a lot of people ask about what dependent measures we can use. You can use math problems in our library. So if a math problem set has a lot of problems, maybe you can treat the first few problems as a pre-test and the last few problems as the post-test. And currently we're creating a dependent measure infrastructure with the similar but not the same problems, which could be used as the dependent measure.
Let me just chime in and say one thing about actually no recruitment needed. You'll probably get, well, there's been several studies that have been published recently, but you'll probably get actually 1,000 kids that will actually be assigned into whatever problem set you actually do. That will probably be over the course of a year. So don't expect anything to happen like instantly. But 1/3 of those subjects will actually be in our best so far. So if there's 1,000 kids that do that problem set, 1/3 of them, you might not care very much about beating our best so far, because I guess we haven't said it, but our best so far is I paid a few teachers to write some hint messages for me, actually, and for most of them, we have more than one. But those aren't actually scientifically very interesting, actually, because they're not varying a single feature at a time. Anyways, I just thought I'd chime in with something about the numbers.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
Another benefit of creating a support comparison study is that you can use multiple problem sets, and the students will be kept in conditions for a longer intervention. So like this example, on day 1, you use problem set 1, student A receives condition 1, student B receives condition 2, and on another day with a different problem set, student A will still receive the same condition as he or she received before. So this way you can examine the longer intervention. Another type of study is the problem varied study. This is about comparing the problem content. So you can customize, you can basically use any content of your choice. Here are some examples that you can watch, you can review later. But for this type of study, you would have to recruit your own participants. But the benefits are that you can do the study with both K-12 and higher ed students, basically any student. And the content is not limited to math. You can build any content in your areas, and you can assign your studies through Canvas or Google Classroom. We also have the LTI integration of assessments with Coursera and edX. Same as support comparison study, a problem varied study will also allow multiple problem sets, so you can examine longer interventions by keeping students in conditions. The next, I will do a demo on our platform. And here's a link to a full tutorial, which you can watch at your own time. So this is what I see. You will see some similar, except that you will not have the admin view. Once you log in, you will see there's add new study. You can click on that and choose. In this demo, I will just show a support comparison study. So you can see there's the overview, conditions, and the build and the deploy. These are the steps as you go through building a study of your own. And you can put a study name there. So for now, I'll just temporarily put this study, research question. So I'm thinking of doing a study that compares asking students to draw versus provide images for students versus asking students to imagine. And then the next step is going to conditions. You can see right now there are 2 conditions. So for this study, I'm demonstrating there are 3 conditions. So I can click add condition and I can customize the name. I'll just say drawing and provided images. And the last condition in my study is asking students to imagine. And the next step is to add a problem set. There are 2 options. If you know the problem set ID by looking at our content library in assessments, you can just add it by ID. Or you can just browse the problem sets and select one. So on the left panel, you can see there are a lot of options. You can click this to just show the problem sets that are available. Because if a problem set has already been used by a study, then it will be grayed out and you cannot select that one. So this will allow you to see all the available problem sets. You can choose the specific skill code. There's the curriculum that you can choose. You can choose curriculum here and you can select the grade. And this will filter out all the available problem sets. And what we will do is then you can choose just by clicking on one problem set and then click use for all conditions. So now you can see the problem set that you just selected. And the next step is to build the hence and the conditions. So here on the left panel, you can see the problem set with all the problems. And for each problem, that's not an open response. So this one, it shows green because it's an open response question. So you will not be allowed to provide hints or explanation for open response questions. But for other problems that are not open response, you can click on it and then you can see these are the conditions of your study. And for each condition, you can click add hint or add explanation to add the hints for your study. And what I will show you next is I've already built the study here using a different problem set, but what I want you to see is the 3 conditions that I built. So in this condition, the drawing condition, it's some instruction for the students to draw without any images. And then in the provided image condition, yeah, there's a provided image to help students. Then in this imagining condition, you can see there's the basic graph as shown in the problem body, but students are asked to imagine the perpendicular line. So these are the 3 conditions that I built. And once you build all the conditions, you can go to the last step is deploy. Before you submit for deployment, you can click on student preview to see what you have built for each condition. And once you are done, you can click submit for deployment. And then we will receive a notification that you submitted for deployment, and we will review your study. And once everything is good to go, we will deploy your study, and teachers, after teachers assign the problem set that you used, then students will get your support and you will start getting data in. One more thing I want to show you is here in the study, you can see how many participants you got. So right now I have 49 participants.
And hey, Lee, can I ask you a question? So this is actually your study, right?
Yes.
And it's actually real, and there's 49 people.
Yeah.
So you put it up, I don't know, when did you put it up?
Probably in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so 49 people have already been randomized to these 3 different conditions, and these conditions, I love how subtle these are. I haven't really paid attention to this study, actually. And so, but whether there's a drop down like line or not to actually help the child understand this. I love this because I taught middle school math. And so this is a really interesting research question about like, will you help them if you show them this? You're going to, when you're going to analyze this, one thing we're not showing people is in the tool where you actually are going to specify, I want to use these items for a pretest. I want to use these items for a post-test. So I'm sorry, we can't show you that yet because we haven't built that.
I didn't show that, but in this study, I used the first problem and the second problem as a pretest. And for the first 2 problems, for the second problem, there are multiple parts. So basically I have like 4 items as pretest.
Okay,
And
so
then,
okay, so by the way, I didn't realize we've already built that. So you were able to specify, here's the pretest items and here are some post-test items, but you had to go to the curriculum and find those items. And you are going to get told as a researcher if the teacher bothers assigning any of those items, whether they're pretest or conditions or post-test, you will get that data. And that's how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, and so for my study, I used the last problem as the post-test. It has basically 2 parts. So we will have to figure out what kind of analysis we want to do with this.
But
okay.
You as the researcher will get all this data and they'll give you reports, and we're happy to actually help you make sure you can understand it.
Yeah, okay. So next, Dr. Heffernan will talk about skill builder study.
Gotcha. So, all right. So skill builders. Skill builders is yet another way of actually running studies. They've been around a while. They've been around so long that actually there's a there's a paper that actually is in this link. And by the way, Lee, we're going to drop the slides. Feel free to drop the slides into the chat if you want, so they can,
Yes.
because there's some links in here. And
Mhm.
but I'll tell you about it. Actually, there's this paper that just came out and won best data set, where we reported on 50 different experiments that they've been running for a long time. You'll wind up actually seeing, when you see this, that there's something like 30,000 students involved in this study. I think it's the biggest single paper that is ever released, actually, any size and anything even close like this. 50 different experiments and 30,000 kids. So but basically, so a skill builder is something that a teacher can assign, and they have to go, a child has to keep going until they get 3 right in a row. All 50 of these experiments we can analyze by looking at actually, hey, did the child actually finish their homework? 25% of children don't finish their homework at any point, actually, any night. You might or might not be surprised by that. As a former middle school math teacher, yep, lots of kids start their homework and don't finish. Let's go to the next slide. So here's this table of actually these studies inside of here. If you sum up these numbers of students, it's something like 30,000. But we actually had a bunch of studies having to do with how many right in a row, 2 correct in a row versus 3 right in a row, a bunch actually comparing to only answer only. And then like at the bottom, motivational sort of stuff. We had 14 different studies looking at different motivational sort of interventions. And there's 12,000 students across those 14 studies. Let's go to the next slide, because the details of each one don't really matter so much to you. The motivational one, I think, is now the second row here. And we actually reported in actually this paper, we reliably hurt children and with our attempts to motivate them. We've now actually just got a paper accepted at LAC that actually attempts to try to figure out, of the 14 studies, hey, what's going on there? Turns out there's like one study that actually has a really positive effect. And we have another study, one study that actually has a very negative effect. We have this one called social comparison that actually has a big positive actually gain score. And it was really simple. The skill builder, oh yeah, is this going to be on the next slide, Lee? The actually picture, boom. So this is like, I love the simplicity of this study. The control is, hey, you're about to start a skill builder. You have to get 3 right in a row. The kids basically know that already. But we actually wanted this to be very equal. The treatment adds this one sentence. It takes students 10 problems on average to master this skill. Okay, you tell them that, you actually have a much better chance that they will finish their homework. Now, we hypothesize that that's caused by them realizing, oh, I shouldn't hold myself, I shouldn't actually get really mad at myself if it takes me a while, because it's everyone else is taking 10 problems. We had another intervention that was very similar. It was like, hey, most 75% of kids will need a hint. That didn't work at all. I'm dying to know the science between, like, what is the exact way you actually have to talk to children about actually this sort of data? Do you need to actually tell them, would it be better if it takes 10 problems, use this information and realize maybe you shouldn't actually beat yourself over the head, or maybe that's going to backfire. I don't know. I'm excited for anyone to go mess around with these types of studies. Next slide. So skill builders, we've used some of that funding I told you about to actually help us make sure we can hold children in condition. I helped David Utah, actually a professor, Northwestern, and he did actually 3 different skill builders. At the time, actually, he couldn't hold children in condition each time. They were re-randomized. But we can do that. We also actually have a link here to actually some low-level details on how do you build a skill builder study. So feel free to take advantage of that. Next slide. And as it has been mentioned, actually secondary data analysis is also possible. I'm super proud of the fact that actually over 100 different papers have been written actually using our data sets. And so that's cool. And we love that. We love giving out all anonymized. Let's be clear. You don't get any personally identifiable information for any of these kids. They're just actually typing in numbers. Next slide. Okay, time for questions and answers. Actually, we're doing good on time. We have 15 minutes left. Who would like to ask a question? feel free to unmute yourself. We're kind of a small group.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. Okay, it's really dark here. I read the request for application and for the secondary data analysis. It shows that like in the section of significance, it asks like how your study will address, like say, diversity issues, equity issues. It's more from like social culture perspective. So is this the priority of this grant competition?
So no, there is no, no, there's no actually priority, meaning actually like, Aaron can speak to that too. Aaron, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, sure. So there's within each request for applications, you'll notice that there are requirements and then there are recommendations that we provide. The requirements are things that you absolutely have to do, and your study must meet those requirements in order to be considered. So there are things like you need to include an education outcome in your research, and there's details about what that means and how we define that in the request for applications. That's an example of a requirement. The recommendations are things to think about that will improve the quality of your application, and they're typically things that our reviewers think about. We also have the SEER standards, which we list out on the first page of the request for applications, and there are 9 of those, and we say that to the extent that you are able, you should be incorporating those into your research designs. But not all of those standards are going to apply to all research projects. So in terms of your question, to the extent that that issue applies to your work, we encourage you to think about it and try to integrate it in, but not everything is going to be applicable to the kind of work you're doing. Secondary data analysis is absolutely allowable here, and we encourage you to submit projects focused on secondary data analysis. I don't know, I hope that answers your question. I think, you know, the other thing I'll just say is, if you're trying to figure out how to fit your project in based on a set of requirements and not everything fits, I'm happy to be a sounding board for you on that. That's where a one-on-one call with me would be really helpful.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, we can go back and forth and I can tell you the kinds of things that reviewers think about.
Good. So I will follow up with my co-PIs. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to see you already have 600 kids in your study. Actually, makes me happy. I didn't even know about that. Actually, I just want to say that's great. And I will say, here's my free advice. Behavioral studies, or you're like interested in like social emotional sort of stuff. Actually, I'm excited about it because I'm happy to see if you tell kids actually do they or do they not finish their homework at different rates. That's really easy for us. I will actually caution that if you're thinking about a social emotional sort of intervention, you probably are often like running some study in a lab where you actually give out some surveys that we can't help you with, right? We basically are trying to make sure we don't interrupt the learning that is normally happening actually, and having someone do like a long survey that you can easily do if you're running something in a psych lab. So there's these trade-offs. And there's these darn reviewers that you actually have to worry about, and it's hard for you to actually guess precisely what they might or might not think is appropriate. They might be like, you want to talk about the social emotional thing, but you have no measure on that. You might want to tone it down and sell it as, well, here's this thing that has better homework completion rates or something. Actually, we just kind of got yelled at by one of our reviewers saying, we're talking about help seeking, but we're really looking at actually like a single help request. And so you can never really guess what reviewers are going to like or dislike. More questions? Or actually, Dick, can we stay with you for a second? Actually, help us first with your first name. How do I pronounce that? I lost you. Okay, all right, we'll move on.
I've always had her down as D. So
D. Okay. Who else wants to ask a question? We're here and ready and available.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you, do you provide researchers who are in the planning process with information about the distribution of users across age ranges? So I'm thinking about The fact that, you say we can use this in K-12 and also post-secondary. Is there a way for people to quickly assess, like if I'm trying to decide between doing this and employing or deploying my study in middle school versus like 4th and 5th grade classrooms, is there a better choice to be made based on potential sample size? And
Yeah.
where would I find that?
So yeah, so so in the ETP, you can see how many people did this problem set. So like once you've selected Engage New York or Illustrative Mathematics, and maybe Lee will actually pop up the slide if you want to show that again. But actually, maybe that was in the demo. It might be hard for her to show. But yeah, but the researchers get to see last year essentially how many people did this exact problem set actually in which month. Now, and by the way, you asked grade. Well, actually, you're picking actually Engage New York, actually 5th grade problem set, and then checking on it. It's possible for a teacher to decide to assign something that is not in their grade, but that's probably not super likely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, no problem. Dee, that you're driving, actually, happy to have you under any circumstances.
Yeah, I'm Daka from Rutgers. I work with the Professor Sigler.
Oh, excellent. Okay. I know Bob Sigler well. Actually, that's great. I'm glad to see that. Glad you're here. Does anyone any other questions anyone wants to ask? Or Aaron, do you want to ask another question?
I actually have a question about so I actually have 2 studies running, and one is and I'm sorry, I'm getting over COVID, so my brain is not as sharp as it usually is. Apologies.
That's fine.
So just gonna say as a disclaimer. But I have a support comparison study running. It has 279 participants so far. I think I'll have more in the winter. I know Lee was saying that we can choose a pretest. Well, so basically the way I did my study, I have one existing OER Eureka Math problem set that has different hints. And I was going to use a later problem set as my post-test. So it would be a post-test only design. Is it possible in eTrials to sort of like link students who participate in the study to students what they do on a later assignment? Or
so we are very happy to try to actually help you. So sounds like to me like you've actually already done a study or you've already put it in, but you might actually want to realize, holy cow, actually in this Engage New York X unit, I want to actually treat 7. I want to treat something that happened on a, let's say your assignment was in lesson 4 and you actually realize, hey, there's some things we want to treat as a pretest and I just want that data dumped. Actually, and there's some stuff on unit 7 and 9, and there's also this weird thing at the end of the unit, actually, and there's problem 7 and 15 that actually I would like data. Can you make sure you give me that data? We are very happy to give you all that data.
Okay, great.
And now you probably sounds to me like you're only realizing this now after the fact, like you built your intervention, right? And so there might be some special magic that we will actually have to do to actually ask someone on our team to be like, go retroactively apply this, but we are very happy to give you that anonymized data.
that's what I wanted to hear. Even if you just give me the data and then I match it up, that's fine.
Because we're planning on this is where Lee introduced Hannah, who is a product owner for the eTrials platform. And one of the things that she and her team are trying to add in is the ability for a researcher to just click and put those problem sets into the ETP. So it's all packaged up, which will help us be more efficient at delivering the data to you with these just predetermined. Plus, a la being a better researcher and all this open science stuff, we would love this to be something that you record ahead of time.
Right.
But we're getting to that place. And those are the things that we're working on. And that's what we are grateful to Erin and her team for funding us to think about those things and to make this stuff work better that way.
Yeah, I will brag actually about one of the other data sets that we have released. So like, for instance, I'm actually at my student Ethan Priar's publication list, but it must be on my publication list, and it's one of our open data sets. We actually gave out anonymized data for everyone during COVID, and so this, I think, is probably the biggest data set that I know of. I don't know, hundreds of thousands of kids, and we give really low level data, and we did a killer job of documenting what the fields are, right? And so you can, so anyways, we can basically do that exact same thing for you, Colleen, or for anyone on this call, who says, oh, I didn't realize I actually wanted also this or that. If the teacher bothered assigning this for something, I want to look at that. I will say one thing we haven't said something about is I strongly encourage you to actually, and we kind of require actually, maybe I shouldn't require. We make it easy for you to comply with the open science principles, right? That are called SEER. That's the society. What is it? What's SEER stand for, Aaron? Educational effectiveness.
Yeah, it's like standards. Hold on. I
Yeah,
got it.
standards for.
Here, I'm gonna pull up the page.
Okay. Great. Drop it in the
Standards
chat.
for Excellence in Education Research. SEER.
Boom. Okay. And so anyways, we make it really easy for you to actually get your data, and basically we want to actually help you properly pre-register your study. And so you haven't, and the great thing is you can go get your study done and get it actually in and going, and then you can come back and you can put onto OSF hey, I haven't actually got the data, and you can use us as knowing, well, in fact, we won't give you your data until you have actually got your study pre-registered. Lee actually shouldn't be giving out data until you're still like, hey, can you make sure you've done your pre-registration? And that can be pretty simple at the Open Science Foundation. And I've done a bunch of pre-registrations. First, where I say, this is the thing I'm actually intervening on. And Colleen, you've already built that study. And then you can be like, hey, I'm going to actually, I'd like some of this data so I can actually possibly pre-register my exact analysis plan after. Like, you probably have not precisely said, hey, because you're not sure which post-test items you actually want to use, but we can help you with that. You can go find your post-test items, and anyways, I'm super happy to help anyone actually do a really great job. If you want to actually ask us, can you only give us half of our data so I can actually pre-register an analysis plan? I look at half of my data, and then once I've figured out exactly what covariates and post-test items I want, then can you give me the other stuff? Lee's going to be very happy to be like, sure, I'll randomize your data and give you half. That's a service that we will give for free.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like it's 5 o'clock. Colleen, thanks so much for coming. And I just wanted to say, I'm gonna hit to actually stop on this recording. And if anyone wants to